Have you ever wondered about the real power of forgiveness? It's a concept that we hear about often, but do we truly understand its depth, its reach, and its transformative abilities? Forgiveness, it's a simple word, yet it carries profound significance. It's not just about saying I'm sorry or I forgive you. It's about healing. It's about letting go of the hurt and bitterness. It's about moving forward. It's a journey, a process, a decision that can change the course of our lives and of those around us. When we forgive, we free ourselves from the shackles of resentment and anger. We open our hearts to peace, joy, and growth. We foster healthier relationships and create a positive environment. We inspire others to do the same, and in doing so, we contribute to a more compassionate, understanding, and harmonious society. But forgiveness is not always easy. It requires courage, humility, and a lot of love. It's a challenge, a struggle, a battle within. Yet it's one of the most powerful tools we have to restore broken relationships, to heal our own hearts, and to experience true freedom. Now, let's shift our focus to a source that has greatly influenced the way we view forgiveness, the Bible. The Christian teachings of forgiveness are profound and timeless. They not only guide us on how to forgive, but they also show us the incredible power and impact of forgiveness. They teach us that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but a mark of strength. It's not about forgetting the hurt, it's about choosing love over hatred, mercy over judgment, and grace over revenge. In the Bible, we find powerful stories of forgiveness that teach us important lessons. These stories, filled with wisdom and truth, remind us of the transformative power of forgiveness, its ability to mend relationships, heal wounds, and bring about redemption. So, as we delve deeper into the biblical teachings, let's explore two powerful stories of forgiveness. These stories, although ancient, resonate with us even today, shedding light on the timeless power of forgiveness. They serve as a mirror, reflecting our own struggles, our own journeys, and our own victories in the realm of forgiveness. Imagine being betrayed by your own family, sold into slavery, and then rising to become a powerful ruler. This is the story of Joseph. In the early chapters of Genesis, we find the extraordinary tale of a young man named Joseph. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, and he was his father's favorite. This favoritism, expressed through a splendid coat of many colors, stirred up jealousy and resentment among his brothers. One day, Joseph shared a dream with his brothers, a dream that seemed to imply that he would one day rule over them. This was the last straw. Driven by anger and envy, they plotted to get rid of him. They stripped him of his coat, threw him into a pit, and then sold him to a caravan of merchants heading to Egypt. In Egypt, Joseph found himself in the house of Potiphar, a high-ranking Egyptian officer. Despite his circumstances, Joseph didn't succumb to despair. Instead, he worked diligently and won Potiphar's trust. However, a false accusation from Potiphar's wife led to Joseph's imprisonment. Even in prison, Joseph's character shone brightly. He interpreted the dreams of his fellow inmates, and word of his gift reached Pharaoh. When Pharaoh himself had a troubling dream, he summoned Joseph. Joseph interpreted the dream, predicting 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. Impressed with his wisdom, Pharaoh elevated Joseph to become the second most powerful man in Egypt, in charge of preparing for the impending famine. When the famine struck, it wasn't confined to Egypt. Back in Canaan, Joseph's family was suffering too. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy grain, unknowing that they would stand before their long-lost brother. Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. He tested them, accused them of being spies, and demanded they bring their youngest brother Benjamin to prove their honesty. When they returned with Benjamin, Joseph couldn't contain his emotions any longer. He revealed his identity, and his brothers were terrified, expecting retribution. But Joseph showed them kindness. He said, "Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life." In other words, he forgave them. Joseph's story teaches us that forgiveness is a journey that can lead to reconciliation and healing. His life was marked by betrayal, false accusations, and hardship. Yet, he rose above these trials, and even more impressively, he forgave those who wronged him. From Joseph, we learn that forgiveness is not about forgetting or ignoring the hurt. It's about choosing to let go of the desire for revenge, the need to make the other person suffer as you have suffered. Joseph could have easily punished his brothers, but instead he chose to forgive. Joseph's forgiveness didn't erase the past, but it did change the future. It opened the door for reconciliation and healing. His brothers were remorseful for their actions, and Joseph's forgiveness allowed them to mend their relationship. We also learn from Joseph that forgiveness doesn't always come easy. It's a journey that might take time. Joseph didn't forgive his brothers immediately. He tested them, perhaps to see if they had changed. But when he saw their concern for their father and for Benjamin, he chose to forgive. Lastly, Joseph's story shows us that forgiveness can be a powerful tool for good. By forgiving his brothers, Joseph preserved his family line, which eventually led to the birth of Moses, King David, and even Jesus Christ. In conclusion, Joseph's story is a remarkable example of forgiveness. Despite the pain and betrayal he experienced, he chose to forgive. His forgiveness led to reconciliation with his brothers and the preservation of his family line. It's a testament to the power of forgiveness to heal wounds, mend relationships, and bring about redemption. Joseph's story teaches us that forgiveness is a journey that can lead to reconciliation and healing. Picture a son who squanders his inheritance only to be welcomed back with open arms by his father. This is the story of the prodigal son. In the Gospel of Luke, we find the parable of the prodigal son, a story that speaks volumes about forgiveness and unconditional love. This tale is one of the most well-known parables in the Bible, and it's penned with such a depth of human emotion and divine understanding that it continues to resonate with us, even centuries after it was first told. To truly grasp the significance of this story, let's delve right into it. The parable begins with a man who had two sons. The younger son, eager to experience life beyond the confines of his father's house, asks for his share of the inheritance. The father, although probably heartbroken, grants his request. The son then journeys to a distant country where he squanders his inheritance on reckless living. He's living the high life, so to speak, until famine strikes the land. Suddenly, he finds himself destitute, forced to work as a swineherd, a job considered unclean and demeaning in Jewish culture. At this point, the son is so hungry that he envies the pigs he's feeding. It's a striking image, isn't it? The son who had everything now wishing he could eat pig slop. He had traded a life of privilege for one of profound desperation. The gravity of his mistakes dawns upon him, and he decides to return home, hoping to be accepted back as a hired servant. Now let's pause here for a moment. It's essential to recognize that the son's decision to return home was not just about escaping his dire circumstances. It was about acknowledging his mistakes and seeking forgiveness. He had hit rock bottom, and in that place of utter despair, he found humility. The story continues with the son's journey back home. As he nears his father's house, his father sees him from a distance. Before the son can even utter a word of apology, the father runs to him, embraces him, and welcomes him back with open arms. He orders his servants to bring the finest robe, a ring, and sandals for his son. He even organizes a grand feast to celebrate his return. Here we see the father's forgiveness in action, even before the son has a chance to ask for it. The father's joy at his son's return overshadows any misdeeds the son had committed. His forgiveness is instant, complete, and unconditional. But there's another character in this story that we can't overlook, the older son. He's been loyal and hardworking, dutifully staying by his father's side while his younger brother was off squandering their wealth. So, when he sees the celebration for his brother's return, he's filled with resentment. He can't understand why his father would celebrate the return of a son who had been so reckless. The father, understanding his older son's frustration, explains that while his loyalty has always been appreciated, they should rejoice because the son who was lost has been found. He emphasizes that everything he has is his older son's, but it's right to celebrate the return of the younger son who was dead and is now alive again. This parable is a powerful lesson on the boundless nature of forgiveness. The Father's forgiveness reflects the infinite mercy of God, who welcomes us back no matter how far we stray. It shows us that no mistake is too great, no sin too grave, that it cannot be forgiven. Moreover, it teaches us about the importance of humility and repentance. The younger son had to recognize his mistakes and feel genuine remorse for his actions. Only then could he return home and seek forgiveness. Lastly, through the older son's character, we're taught not to harbor resentment when others are forgiven. We must understand that everyone has their unique journey, and just because someone else's path is different doesn't mean it's less deserving of forgiveness. The prodigal son's story shows us that forgiveness knows no bounds, and it's never too late to make amends. It's a timeless tale that reminds us of our capacity to err, to stray, but more importantly, our ability to return, to seek forgiveness, and to be embraced with open arms. It's a story that, at its heart, is about the transformative power of forgiveness and the beautiful, boundless love that lies at its core. Both stories, though different, teach us profound lessons about forgiveness. As we delve into the intricacies of the stories of Joseph and the prodigal son, we begin to unravel the immense depth of forgiveness and its transformative power. Each story, though distinct in its narrative, carries a common thread: the power of forgiveness to mend relationships, heal wounds, and bring about redemption. Looking at Joseph's story, we see a man who had every reason to hold on to resentment and bitterness. His brothers had betrayed him, selling him into slavery, a fate that no one would wish upon their worst enemy. Yet, when given the opportunity to exact vengeance, Joseph chooses a different path. He chooses forgiveness. This act doesn't just free his brothers from guilt, but it also liberates Joseph from the chains of bitterness that could have held him captive. It's a demonstration of the healing power of forgiveness. Yet, Joseph's story also teaches us that forgiveness is not always immediate. It's often a journey, one that requires patience and a deep understanding of our own emotions. It's a process that demands we look beyond our pain to see the potential for reconciliation and healing. Now, let's turn our attention to the prodigal son. Here we see a different kind of forgiveness, one that's not contingent on the actions of the wrongdoer. The father in this story exemplifies unconditional forgiveness. He forgives his son even before he confesses his wrongs. This act of forgiveness is not just about the son, it's about the father's inherent love and willingness to forgive. It's a testament to the boundless nature of forgiveness. The prodigal son's story also highlights the transformative power of forgiveness. The son, once lost, was found again through the act of forgiveness. His father's forgiveness didn't just mend their broken relationship, but it also transformed the son's life, leading him back onto the path of righteousness. The stories of Joseph and the prodigal son may differ in their narratives, but they both underscore the same message. Forgiveness is not merely an act of letting go of the wrongs done to us. It's a powerful catalyst for change and healing. It's a tool that allows us to mend broken relationships and heal deep-seated wounds. It's a pathway that leads us to redemption. But these stories don't just talk about forgiving others, they also speak volumes about the importance of seeking forgiveness. They remind us that acknowledging our mistakes and seeking forgiveness is as crucial as granting it. It's a two-way street that requires humility, honesty, and a willingness to change. In both stories, we see that forgiveness comes with a cost. It requires us to let go of our pride, our resentment, and our desire for revenge. But the rewards of forgiveness far outweigh the costs. It brings peace, reconciliation, and redemption. It sets us free from the shackles of bitterness and resentment. It allows us to move forward, leaving the past behind and embracing a future filled with hope and love. So, as we reflect on these powerful stories, let's remind ourselves of the transformative power of forgiveness. Let's strive to forgive as freely as the father in the prodigal son story, and with as much grace as Joseph. And as we seek to forgive others, let's also remember to seek forgiveness for our own wrongs. Let's remember that forgiveness is not just about letting go of the past, but also about embracing a future where love, peace, and reconciliation reign supreme. Let these stories serve as a reminder that forgiveness is not just an act, but a powerful catalyst for change and healing. It's a virtue that, when practiced, can mend relationships, heal wounds, and bring redemption. It's clear that forgiveness is not just an act, but a powerful catalyst for change and healing. As we reflect on these biblical lessons of forgiveness, we are reminded of how we should also strive to forgive. It's not always easy, and it often requires a great deal of strength and humility. But the tales we've explored today, those of Joseph and the prodigal son, illustrate the immense power and liberating freedom that comes with forgiveness. We dove deep into the story of Joseph, a man betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and yet he chose to forgive. Joseph's story is a testament to the strength of character, a beacon of resilience and compassion that shines through the darkest of times. His decision to forgive, despite the gravity of his brother's actions, is a powerful reminder of how forgiveness can mend relationships, heal old wounds, and pave the way for redemption. In the parable of the prodigal son, we also saw a profound display of unconditional love and forgiveness. A father, despite his son's transgressions, welcomed him back with open arms. This story teaches us that forgiveness knows no bounds. It paints a picture of boundless love, a love that forgives without keeping score, without holding on to the pain of the past. These stories are not just tales from a distant past. They are timeless lessons, relevant even today, urging us to practice forgiveness in our own lives. Whether it's a friend who wronged us, a family member who disappointed us, or a stranger who hurt us, we are called to forgive. Forgiveness is not about forgetting or condoning the wrong that was done. It's about releasing the burden of resentment and bitterness that we carry within us. It's about setting ourselves free from the chains of the past and stepping into the light of love, understanding, and reconciliation. But remember, forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. It's a process that takes time. It requires patience, understanding, and above all, love. So as we journey through life, let us strive to be more forgiving, to show more compassion, and to extend more grace. Let's reflect on these stories, on their profound lessons, and let's strive to apply them in our own lives. Let's try to be more like Joseph, showing resilience and compassion even in the face of betrayal. Let's aspire to be like the father in the parable of the prodigal son, extending forgiveness and unconditional love even when it's least deserved. May we all learn to forgive as we have been forgiven. And as we embark on this journey of forgiveness, let's remember that we are not alone. We have these stories, these lessons from the Bible to guide us and inspire us. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of forgiveness. We hope that the stories and insights shared today have touched you, inspired you, and perhaps even challenged you. May we all learn to forgive as we have been forgiven. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe for more insightful content.